Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Červená Barva Press reading series. And tonight we have two really wonderful readers, and I'm very excited to have you here to hear them. And our first reader is Lloyd Schwartz. Lloyd is the poet laureate of Somerville. His two new books are He Tells His Mother What He's Working On, a chapbook, published by the Grolier Poetry Press, and Artur, Schnabel, and Joseph Szigeti play Mozart at the Frick Collection, April 4th, 1948, and other poems, published by Arrowsmith. He's an admired expert on Elizabeth Bishop, a Pulitzer Prize-winning critic, and the recipient of this year's David Ferry-Ellen LaForge Annual Poetry Award and the New England Poetry Club's Sam Cornish Prize. And I give you Lloyd.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you for thank you, everyone. um, it's really it's great to be here and great to be reading with Dan. It's something that we have planned or hoped for a long time. So this is great. And I'm gonna read four poems from this new book. And uh, the first one is very short, and two of them are very long, I'm afraid. And then one of them is sort of medium size. But I wanted to read this first poem because it's a translation of a poem by the great Hungarian poet Attila József, 20th century Hungarian poet Attila József. And it's called The Gardener's Song. Michael, I'll dedicate this to you. In a garden of my own making, the trees and I will soon be waking. Shyly I'll while away the hours, planting seeds and tending flowers. And so I'll sow, and so I'll reap, planting, planting in my sleep. So what if all the flowers are weeds? Don't all of us derive from seeds? I'll drink my milk and smoke my pipe till even my good name gets ripe. If danger's lurking all around, I'll plant myself inside the ground. We need this, east and west. We know this, know what's for the best. And if the world's too late to save, I'll plant a flower on its grave. And I will now read a poem uh, that probably doesn't need any explanation to anyone here. It's called Corona Blues. And it starts with two epigraphs. Um, because of coronavirus, you are going to be quarantined, but you have a choice. Do you A, quarantine with your wife and child, or B, there is only time for this merciless inventory. That's from Evan Boland's poem, Quarantine. It's in two parts. One, it's the night before shutdown, and we're determined to do something heroic. What were we afraid of? After all our years together, we decide to get married. First thing in the morning, we call City Hall. We're told to go to the courthouse. It's raining. The traffic is heavy, and there's already a line. When we're finally at the counter, the clerk tells us we've been misinformed. We have to apply for our license at City Hall, on the other side of town, in the heavy traffic, in the heavy rain. At City Hall, we get on another line to get the application we need to get approved at the courthouse to get our license at City Hall. At City Hall, the security guard reminds us, will be closing at noon, indefinitely. Back at the courthouse, we find two lines, divorce and paternity. A guard tells us to pick the line that's shorter. Divorce is shorter than paternity. The lady at the counter seems happy to see a couple who aren't miserable yet. She tells us we need to see a judge. In the empty courtroom, the bailiff yells at us to stop whispering. The judge is nice. She asks us to swear we are who we are, and she believes us. She explains the whole waiting period. It would be easier to wait. But we can't wait. The rain keeps getting harder. Back at City Hall, we need to find a justice of the peace. But the ones who work there are all engaged. On a list they give us, you find a dimly familiar name. You like her name. You phone, and she answers. Come on over, she tells us. She works right across the street. She's married people before, and she's good at it. Her office mates are enthusiastic witnesses. Everyone's happy. Then she reminds us we still need to get our license. She grabs her raincoat, says, "Come on," and races with us back to City Hall. She sails into the office. "Hi, girls." "Hi, Denise," they call back. "Stop everything. These nice folks need a license." But the printer's down. "Get Jack," someone yells. It's almost noon. Then Jack appears and slams the printer hard enough to print out our license. The office quietly returns to its shutdown, and we, with barely a minute to spare, we seem to be married. 2. We used to eat out every night. Every night. I'd ache for a home-cooked meal. Now home is the only safe place to eat. So we order our dinners delivered from the same places where we ate out. But our favorite places are closing. We have to cook, which is often a source of tension, increasingly often. We must avoid the danger zones, each of us fearing for the other's safety. Quote, "Bread for days on end drives all real thought from my brain." Unquote. One morning, a neighbor tells me she saw someone talking to their cat. "I told my dog," she says, and we both laughed. It's increasingly hard to concentrate. I want to be productive, but nothing works, nothing new. I look at things I abandoned. I worked hard on them, but I don't know how to fix them. We watch the news until we can't stand anymore. Then murder mysteries for the happy endings. And old movies. In a lonely place. From here to eternity. Night of the Living Dead. Every disaster movie, someone says on TV, begins with ignoring a scientist. Duck soup. A friend sends us a link to a video. Old dancing stars sync to a funk soundtrack, kicking up their heels with such lightness of being. We watch it over and over. We never want it to end. You get an email from an old friend. Dad was doing fine, determined to live to 100. On his birthday, we had a big party, and he was alert, happy, chatting, and blowing out candles. There was absolutely nothing wrong with him. Then he got the virus. First I blamed the faceless pandemic. Now I think I'll blame the president. The Queen addresses people of all faiths and of none, and tells us we're discovering an opportunity to slow down, pause, and reflect in prayer or meditation. We'll be with our friends again. We'll be with our families again. We will meet again. A doctor warns people from New Jersey, stay home. Please, God, stay home. The president gets the virus. A friend leaves a message. Is the bastard dead yet? We hold our breath. We don't enjoy our schadenfreude. Then we do. We know we're lucky to be together, but tempers flare at the slightest misapprehension. How can anyone bear the isolation of living alone? Hard enough to bear the isolation of living together. If we get the virus, we want to get it together. Eventually, there's a break in the weather. We meet a friend for a stroll in the open air, a pastoral walk in a beautiful old cemetery. People we like are buried there. A few days later, we put a down payment on a plot. Listener. That's the longest of the poems. This one is a poem that I would never have written if it weren't for Gloria. And Gloria was invited to do a section of a magazine. Is it Nepalese? A Nepalese magazine. And the section was devoted to poets' houses in Massachusetts. And as I say, I would never have written this poem if Gloria hadn't invited me. And I'm so glad you did. Intimate visits. I was lucky. I knew a great poet, and she was kind to me. The first time we were introduced, I told her I loved her poems. Thank you, she replied, then turned and walked away. Years later, I thought writing about her could be my rescue. but having come to know the depth of her privacy, I asked her if she would mind. "I'm afraid there's not much to write about," she demurred. I told her to let that be my problem. Then she asked, "But would you finish it?" Was she being motherly, fearing disappointment, or expecting it? Then she asked if I would like to meet with her, to help if I had any questions. So I came to her apartment for exactly 1 hour at a time, and she would tell me stories about how hard it had been for her to get published, about what she had written under a pseudonym or published anonymously, or who her poems were really about. Things, she said, she'd never told anyone. Once I asked if she would explain a certain line. Her answer, "But it's obvious." Her sign that I could never again ask anything directly about her poems. One day she was expecting the books she had put in storage. Anyone who'd help unpack them and brush away the insect powder, she had allergies, could keep any of the books she didn't want for herself. I wanted them all. Years after she died, I slid her modern library giant Freud off a shelf, and a piece of onion skin, a bookmark, slipped from between the pages. An intimate note she'd written to her lover in the hospital, whose family had tried to destroy all their letters. "Your doctor doesn't seem to realize the boredom of hospital life for you when you are not asleep, that is. But I do." On one of my visits, we were interrupted by her doorbell, an unexpected delivery. We sat together on her couch as she unwrapped the package, a book she was in. She opened it to her page, a poem of her own, along with one she had chosen by another poet. And on a facing page, a recent photo, a full-page picture. I told her, not lying, that I thought she looked beautiful, thoughtful, and elegant, though her hair was a little wild and her cheeks a little puffy from her medications. Without a word, she took the book and disappeared. After how many minutes, she finally returned and handed me the book, which I then continued to peruse. But as I leafed through the pages, I couldn't find her photo. That page was gone. The photograph was gone. With remarkable precision, she had torn it from the book. And the last poem I'm going to read is the title poem of this book. And Artur Schnabel and Joseph Szigeti play Mozart at the Frick Collection, April 4th, 1948. This is the cover. It's a picture of the actual record that this poem is about. Two of the greatest musicians who ever lived couldn't record together. They worked for competing companies, but they admired each other and occasionally played together in public. One concert took place at the Frick Collection, the most refined museum in New York. Just outside the concert room, hang some of the masterpieces of Western art. Bellini's St. Francis, Rembrandt's self-portrait, Titian's of Velasquez, 3 Vermeers. It seems right. That concert must have been broadcast on the radio. Someone must have recorded it. I didn't know it existed until a friend surprised me with a copy for my birthday. One of my most cherished gifts. The greatest pianist and the greatest violinist of the century. I had never heard them perform together. I couldn't imagine it. Schnabel's uncanny delicacy, his sense of tragedy, a trill that suddenly sees into the abyss. Szigeti's visceral touch, his heartbreaking soulfulness, his speaking inflections. Could they really play together? If anything, they are more intimately responsive to each other's odd individual voice than almost any other musical collaborators I've ever heard. Ella and Louis, her heavenly sweetness, his earthy growl. More immediately, intuitively responsive to each other than almost any pair of musicians I've ever heard. Mozart's Sonata in E flat, K481 as it's usually referred to, one of the wondrous later pieces he wrote in Vienna. He was nearly 30. In less than 6 years, he'd be dead. He was one of the inventors, one of the masters of the kind of music making in which the players are equal partners. Not just a soloist with an accompanist, collaborators, conspirators. In K481, the players are equals, not identical, but equal, a partnership in which both partners can maintain their own personality, their own individuality, not identical, but equal. Schnabel begins with an enunciation, 3 firm notes. Then Szigeti puts the period on Schnabel's brief sentence. Or is it an exclamation point? Then Schnabel relaxes, almost whistling a little tune. Szigeti gives him room. Szigeti softens too. Their first moment of equal tenderness, not exactly toward each other, but a sudden, easy acceptance of the possibility of goodness, of kindness in the world. They're mutually content, in accord. They share their accord. In the slow movement, Schnabel is singing a lullaby. Or is it a love duet? Lovers parting? And Szigeti is humming along. Then suddenly, it's the violin singing, a quiet lament. Szigeti trying to hide at least some part of his grief, while Schnabel insists, gently insists, on getting past this. When the opening melody returns, Schnabel incorporates Szigeti's lament, and Szigeti extends his. Near the end of the movement, the violin suddenly, urgently leaps into another register, another world, as if staying on the earth were just too hard. In fact, intolerable. Schnabel's piano flutters in agitation, then resigns itself to allow Szigeti to pour his heart out. Schnabel lets him, waiting for Szigeti to return to the ground, which he finally, though with some apparent reluctance, does. And once again, they are both part of the same world, where crying out against grief and accepting it are inseparable. Can there be a happy ending? Szigeti, maybe reluctantly, seems finally to have passed through lament into something close to joy, bringing Schnabel along with him. Or is this joy exactly where Schnabel was heading from the very beginning? They are soon not just resigned, but happy, equally, if not identically, happy. Increasingly exuberant, playful, teasing, increasingly a couple. Is that a tear about to fall? Whose? But no, they continue their game. Yes, they say. Yes, we're all right. It's all right. Mozart says it's all right. Mozart says yes. In a concert at the Frick Collection in 1948, Artur Schnabel and Joseph Szigeti played Mozart's Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. That was wonderful. And our next reader is Daniel Tobin. He is the author of 9 books of poems, including Dusk Empire, New and Selected Poems, 1987 to 2024, from Four Way Books, 2026. Blood Labors, also from Four Way Books, 2018, and it was named one of the best poetry books of the year for 2018 by the New York Times, and the Mansion's Four Way Books 2023 winner of the National Indie Excellence Award in Poetry. His work has won many awards, among them the Massachusetts Book Award, the Julia Ward Howe Prize, and fellowships from the NEA and the Guggenheim Foundation. And I give you Daniel.
Thank you, Lloyd. What a wonderful reading. It's such a pleasure to be reading with you. Those poems are glorious, and I'm really thankful that everybody who's here is here. Some I know, and many I know, and I'm very grateful. I'm going to start the reading from a chapbook I published last year with Staircase Books. And it's all micro poems, so very short first poem. It's called First Light. There is no such thing as dark. It's just your eyes are blinkered out of being parsed by being kin to tree huggers and shrews. Good news. Now somebody needs to go tell the screech owl. This is called Where Late the Sweet Birds, and it's a bourrime. I'm playing off a Shakespeare sonnet. I've stolen his rhyme scheme. Where late the sweet birds. As though I'd summoned it with the word behold, a starling flew from maple leaves that hang above my patio, green shade and summer cold as fall. A plane flared overhead. Nothing sang. Jackhammers clanged the heart out of the day while the sun arced imperceptibly west. The bird scavenged before it flew away, scraps among polynoses and the rest of what spring had rained down, lust's golden fire to fill the earth with passing. It's no lie. The wind with its slight from aspire to expire, and the wish I wished as the bird streaked by, longing in its dumb way to make the thing strong, the nest toward which it flew that would not last long. Lloyd and I are both from Brooklyn, New York. And so I feel obligated to read a Brooklyn poem from, I think it's my third book, The Narrows. I'm reading all from Dusk Empire right now. And this is called A Mosque in Brooklyn. I grew up in an apartment building. And so in that apartment building, we could hear muezzins calling the people to prayer. Bay Ridge, Brooklyn is where I grew up. So this is called A Mosque in Brooklyn, and you'll recognize the form. It's a play on a ghazal. There is no prayer that can abolish history. Though in this basement mosque, the muezzin's history gathers in his throat like a tenor's aria, and he calls to God to put an end to history. From my courtyard room, I hear his song ascending, the divine name whirling its rebuke to history. Allah, Allah, above the crowded row house roofs. Their rusted antennas, stalled arrows of history would transmit a daily riot of talk and news, the world boxed inside a glowing square of history. I've seen them on the street, the faithful in their robes walking along storefronts, a different history clothing them like me in our separate skins, though here we are at the scope end of history. Goodness is timeless, the great English poet wrote, and not just for himself. The crime is history. But as if to prove the old Sufi fable true, these prayers are lifted on the thermals of history and sound strangely like that congregation of birds. No, the remnant who survived a blighted history, having stayed their quest into the final valley where a great tree rose, its branches thick as history. And there they lost themselves, flourishing into the one, without division, without names, without history. I'm going to read, I guess these are newer poems, new poems from the new poems section of the book. And I guess they kind of run together as a sort of mini triptych. And these are all childhood poems. The first is called Monopoly, 1973. I'm afraid things haven't changed much. Sorry. Monopoly, 1973. Dugout walls, sawhorse and spades in waiting, hung on hammered nails or piled neatly, dank smell of damped humus weathering. That plywood shelf table to concrete blocks was our summer game board lazy afternoons. Sunita, Sullivan, Greco, and me. Our stacks of play money ranged in parceled colors. One of us a thimble, one of us a hat, one of us a dog, one of us a race car. Roll the dice, circle the square in turn, accruing as we could the mock real estate, Baltic or Boardwalk, Skid Row or Demesne, taking what we could where chance landed us, jackpot or jail, the saving cash for pass and go, planting our plastic houses and hotels so one could supplant the rest one by one for unpaid rent. 500 Snapagoni goes. For today, let's say it was Sullivan, and such was the lingo of his currency, as one by one indeed we settled up until there was nothing left to settle for, the way OPEC decided to embargo crude, and what was shaping up to be a gilt-edged year, blundered to stagflation and the usual greed. While Sunita's father buried himself under a blown-out engine block, and Greco sat upstairs, a few lawns mowed and no work left, and mine, desk-bound, checked the time, and Sullivan's climbed another humming pole up through the trees to the power lines that stretched away like a receding script as his son exulted in the cellar dark, who'd ground his good friends blithely to the dirt. This next poem is called The White Road. It's a little bit longer, It's kind of a short story in verse. And my first poetry teacher is here, Michael Palma, and a wonderful translator from the Italian, wonderful poet, and the great translator of Dante. And so the figure in this poem, it so happens, somebody I grew up with, his name was Dante. So I'm reading the poem. The White Road. I am walking along the dazzling ruin of a road I knew when I was 14, summer, and the days stretch out like the road itself, or like that song about a road heading somewhere far off into the unseen, and the one walking, caminante no hay camino, knows he's come upon his life rising up to him in white quartz, macadam, and heat haze. Along the slapdash shoulder, a few almost teenage boys are shaving down stalks of goldenrod in afternoon sun, the better to whip the heads off weeds, or whip each other before nothing much calls them to loiter off elsewhere, to Grassi's junkyard or the shale pit, or today, saunter the dirt lane down to the lower lake, where in 3 years Dante Tedeschi will fashion a ramp out of cast-off plywood and scrap, aiming to accomplish something no one has dared before, to tear down Heart Attack Hill past Hendershot's house in full view of the ball courts, the beach where Patty Curiali, all glistening skin and breasts, in her string bikini, suns her blonde self, her feet dangling from the wooden dock. Or she's out on the raft readying to dive with a life brace into the unseeable, into murk of the middle of that dammed up pond we call the lake, which is approximately the medium into which Dante aims to take flight, hauling from a hilltop at top speed toward the ramp he's sturdied beside the bridge, as if he was on his father's Harley and not some souped-up almighty Schwinn, its raised handles, its roll bar, the flared banana seat, as though this were a road bike, and he some mythical easy rider twisting the hand grips to gun it beyond sound or sense into a catalytic future. We called him Boone. Even our fathers called him Boone. Our mothers, arrayed in neon polyester like kitsch statuary outside their jury-built summer houses, coolers of beer and whiskey sours all evening long under citronella torches, weekend parties that made the rounds from porch to patio while their children wandered off. Here he comes now, Dante, AKA Boone, with his incongruous swagger and Coke bottle glasses, twirling a cut-down stick in his left hand that he now pretends is a Louisville slugger he summons to swing, a dead pull hitter, blithely turning on the invisible, the fastball deposited somewhere deep in the vetch across the sweltering pitch and glitter of the white road. His laugh was a kind of rapid-fire staccato, shuttling between a case of hiccups and a howitzer, unfettered, pure enjoyment admixed to a purer derision. Like when, playing chess on Garrity's lawn, he'd stare expressionless at his opponent's spread of forces, pawns advancing, bishops slicing slantwise over the squares, and in no time their queen taken, king checkmated, and it shot up uncontrollable, infiltrating the canopy, the shade trees sheltering the picnic table, echoing off the rusted shed, that impishly jocular spattering of genius, immodestly, no surprise to us, surprising itself again with its own manic and rarefied life. Always he attained whatever he desired, slaughter on the game board, sliding catches in left center on Power's field, even the soft limb Patty of dreams. He'd take her nightly to Schumann's porch, the house disused or abandoned, the rest of us pent and waiting with the unkempt fevers of our bodies that longed to trespass beyond their churning borders. Like a spoon slipping into honey, he'd say, letting his smile float in the air, while among us, like a fraying wing of smoke, the blazon of his carnal knowledge. He was the first to go, the buzz coming by phone one winter evening after those summers had disbanded to intimations of more necessary longings for jobs, for departures, the bullet passing clean through his skull at a sister's wedding. The trigger pulled, by the groom's hand. What he had done or said, none of us would come to know, though all of us could hear inside that rapid-fire laugh, haughty, untamable, and saw his shambling, self-assured walk as in a heat wave off the white road, Dante alias Boone, in saddle on his Schwinn, wheeling breakneck from on high down heart attack in the mind's would-be perpetual now. Hair flying, potholes, loose gravel be damned, down to where the rigged ramp rose upward above the waiting lake. Our crowd of bored numbnuts cheering as bike and rider flew treacherously up into the air and out beyond the shore and disappeared. Circlets of waves radiating out like visible ticks from a clock face, slowly softening into nothing, one by one by one, as we waited for the quick-eyed, impudent head to rise. I'll read next the poem Drainpipe, which completes the that little triptych. Drainpipe. Gravel, scrabble, summer storms wasted down, off the shoulder to a 3-foot wide mouth, the cast tube fitted snugly underground before they graded it over, stone and pitch smoothed under the roller's unrelenting weight. That's where the boys stood, as if a hatch yawned its slim passage to another world that glowed down the tunnel at the far end, a bright white portal to the other side. One of them, the bravest, the crazy one, crouched low to grapple the road wash away, where the dark gaped, corrugated, prone. His friends milled above while he, unwavering, only a shadow of what could happen calculated inside the eye's glazed chamber, sloped his shoulders inward and ducked under where coolness tempered on him like a squall and blown grit and pebbles littered his hands, and his shins, naked, felt the remnant slur of whatever flowed in and flurried through that soldered casing of what comes and goes. And now midway, maybe he felt something in the pit of himself, crawling, a blackness, like a body thrown back to its beginning, or an old man hauling on elbows and knees along the floor, unable to walk, hauling, he wants to crawl out of his own body, that waste tube, that slurry gate, until all concentrates into the white portal ahead, the steel encased lives ramrodding above, the boy hunching forward now and setting on day his grave quickening grovel when he comes out from the leaden into light, the waiting faces of others in the open. Let's see. I want to change it up a little bit. This next poem is called A Starry Messenger. And that's an allusion, some of you might know, to Galileo. But this is not a poem about Galileo. It's a poem that I found out after watching a National Geographic Explorer, where they were talking about finding a certain kind of quartz that indicated that there'd been a visit from the cosmos to this particular part of our planet. So it has a little epigraph from National Geographic Explorer. In the layers of one deep ravine, scientists discovered evidence of shocked quartz, indicative of an asteroid strike. A Starry Messenger. This abyssal seam, shocked white, all matter blanching as though at once the planet glimpsed the shrieking face in its ossifying coif of serpents snapping through the atmosphere, 6-mile flint head, galactic pinball, tumbling for eons through the post-Big Bang gambit, gizmo singularity that, if you incline anthropic, tips the Euclidean dice toward us, O provident Yucatan, knocking off the big critters, raising up the furry runts, slight by mutant slight, until we arrive, Eve's garrulous clan, fallen tree huggers, inveigling the long grasses with our grunts, striding on upright haunches into piazzas where torched bonfires burn their living human tinder. How quickly time's passage from opposable thumb to disposable sums, while the watchman stares into tracks of stars, calculating amplitudes, surveying the hushed sublime, as in a bright gallery someone imagines being the hand on the brush, the gaze of the world the eye makes just by looking, remade in the practiced room. So we know it is only our own strayed immensity caught in the signals, our own rogue future hurtling almost toward us in the telescope's cosmic eye, lodestar whirled from the vacant, grazing air like a skipped stone in endless ocean, or a contraption in Rube Goldberg's universe, the immense design of play that sometime will wallop us when how many billion lives spin in their orbits on a day like this, each one with everyone gone, gathered inside the marrow. Yes, it could be tomorrow when the lodestone moat bears down and life wobbles on. And I guess I'll finish with a final poem since we're in a virtual reading. This is called Ode to the Google Maps Man. We all know that little guy. I get kind of fascinated with him, as the poem will suggest. Ode to the Google Maps Man. Even he needs somebody to praise him, don't we? I think so. Gold-suited spaceman, terranaut, digital archon, ever descending, eyeless, every-eyed, you carry me with you down from your ether-clouded reaches to wherever I am not. Sao Paulo or Lourdes, seething metropolis, graffiti blazoned in the high, enduring sun, the same sun pouring on the Rue de la Grappe, where three women in kerchiefs are walking, and a man rides his bike down the serpentine hillside street to the hospital. You too appear with each itinerant click like a vision. That evening in the Marais, Le Sevigné, the Place Royale, I drank and ate and dreamed. Or west of Clifton, the Sky Road, the light at tipping point to here and now and out beyond. You transport me there and there again, wingless, winged, impossible, homunculus, cartoon bearing me back to the foregone neighborhood of my childhood, the gone towns of former lives imprinting me again, blurred faces where cars swerve, and these unstaged crossroads, you station me to browse an array of storyboards, pathways of glimpse and glance, tempting me to choose. I love your wormhole portal that teleports through time, trucks, tarmac, Florentine squares, odysseys of islands, ramshackle streets of Addis or Mumbai, and you happy enough to be here as anywhere, Fairbanks or Freeport, Milan, Myanmar, Minsk, Wellington, or Wyandotte, or floating over it all to scope the vast empty stretches of waste clouds above Chengdu, terracotta rooftops, tent cities, the human lives spreading, they look bacterial across forest and floodplain, this ride of a river idling its way to ocean. And on his abrupt mount, Cristo Redentor, his arms outstretched above the iniquitous city, where you touch down again now, icon, voyeur, ever incipient, ever arriving, disincarnate, you who hail us, who harry us, who haunt us, but cannot heal. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. That was great. Both of you read such incredible work tonight. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to everyone for attending and listening to them tonight. And that's it for tonight. If you want to stay and chat a few minutes, that's fine. All right, and thank you. Yay.